First contact deception. The observation deck of the United Nations Defense Force vessel Artemis offered the best view of the approaching alien ship. Admiral James Hawkins stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching as the massive vessel of the Varkarian Dominion grew larger against the backdrop of stars. Unlike the sleek, practical design of human vessels, the Varkarian ship was ornate, with sweeping curves and glowing blue conduits that pulsed with energy. "They're certainly not shy about flaunting their technology," commented Dr. Eliza Wright, head of Sinolinguistics. Her dark eyes narrowed as she studied the approaching vessel. "That's exactly what we expected," Hawkins replied, "and exactly what we planned for." The Artemis represented humanity's public face to the galaxy, a deliberately outdated design using conventional fusion drives and titanium alloy plating. Its weapon systems were respectable, but nothing revolutionary. Particle beams and kinetic projectiles. To the approaching Varkarians, it would appear primitive, perhaps even quaint. What the aliens couldn't detect was that beneath the conventional exterior, the Artemis housed quantum-locked compartments containing technology that humanity had kept secret for over 50 years. The ship's true defensive and offensive capabilities remained hidden behind layers of specialized shielding designed to mask energy signatures. "They're hailing us, Admiral," announced Lieutenant Commander Peddle from her communication station. Hawkins straightened his uniform. On screen, the main display flickered to life, revealing a humanoid figure with iridescent blue-green scales that covered its face and neck. 4 amber eyes blinked in sequence, examining the humans with obvious curiosity. "Greetings, representatives of Earth. I am High Commander Zex Vorel of the Varkarian Dominion." The alien's voice came through the translator with a slight mechanical edge. "We have observed your species for some time and deemed you ready for formal contact. Commander Zex Vorel, I am Admiral James Hawkins of the United Nations Defense Force. On behalf of humanity, we welcome you and look forward to peaceful relations." The Varkarian's upper eyes narrowed slightly. "Indeed, our scans indicate your vessel is powered by rudimentary fusion technology. Quite resilient for such an inefficient design." Hawkins smiled diplomatically. "We make do with what we have, Commander." "Admirable," Zex Vorel replied with what seemed like condescension. "We would be pleased to host your delegation aboard our vessel for initial diplomatic discussions. Our environment is compatible with your physiology, and we have much to discuss about your species' place in the greater galactic community." Dr. Wright shot Hawkins a warning glance. This was moving faster than expected. "We would be honored," Hawkins replied. "Please allow us time to prepare our diplomatic team." When the communication ended, Dr. Wright turned to the Admiral. "They're scanning us continuously. Very aggressive probes." "Let them look," Hawkins said. "Director Chen's quantum shields are holding. They're seeing exactly what we want them to see." "And if they invite us to join their dominion?" asked Captain Reyes, who had remained silent throughout the exchange. "Then we'll politely decline and gauge their reaction," Hawkins said. The Security Council was clear. "We maintain the facade until we understand their intentions." 12 hours later, a small diplomatic team from Earth stood in the cavernous reception hall of the Varkarian vessel. The ceiling soared 20 meters above them, decorated with holographic displays of what appeared to be Varkarian military victories. Admiral Hawkins noticed how each display seemed to feature Varkarian ships decimating the fleets of other species. High Commander Zex Vorel approached with 4 subordinates. "Admiral Hawkins, welcome aboard the Dominant Tide. I trust your shuttle transport was adequate." "More than adequate, thank you," Hawkins replied, noting the slight emphasis on adequate. Their shuttle had been deliberately basic, another part of the charade. "You'll be fascinated to know," Zex Vorel continued, "that the Dominant Tide is merely a diplomatic vessel. Our actual warships are significantly more impressive." Dr. Wright smiled pleasantly. "We're eager to learn more about your civilization, Commander. Earth has only been exploring beyond our solar system for 70 years. Yes, your progress has been steady, if somewhat slow," the Varkarian replied. The Dominion achieved interstellar travel over 6 centuries ago. We now encompass 47 star systems and protect 17 developing species. Protect? Hawkins inquired. Indeed, the galaxy can be perilous for emerging civilizations. The Dominion offers protection in exchange for reasonable resource contributions and technological exchange. Zexforal's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. Many species find the arrangement quite beneficial, particularly when the alternative might be less structured relations with other powers. There it was, the veiled threat that intelligence had predicted. The Varkarians weren't here for equal diplomatic relations. They were here to establish dominance. We appreciate your concern for developing species, Hawkins said carefully. Earth values its independence highly, however. A ripple passed through the scales on Zexforal's face, an expression that the humans couldn't interpret. Independence is admirable, but often impractical. Our long-range observations of your colonies on Mars, Europa, and Alpha Centauri suggest significant challenges with resource allocation and defense. Hawkins maintained his diplomatic smile despite the revelation that the Varkarians had been monitoring human settlements without their knowledge. We manage our affairs adequately, Commander. Of course, Zexforal replied smoothly. But imagine what your people could achieve with Varkarian technology. Your fusion drives could be replaced with gravity displacement engines. Your defensive capabilities could repel asteroids and solar flares more effectively. At what cost? Dr. Wright asked. Merely reasonable access to some of your system's resources. Jupiter's hydrogen, for instance, which you barely utilize. Perhaps mining rights on some of your outer asteroids. The discussion continued as the Varkarians led the human delegation through the ship, displaying technologies that were indeed impressive. Artificial gravity that could be precisely controlled, biological interfaces for ship systems, and weapons that could supposedly target specific molecules in an enemy vessel. Throughout the tour, the Varkarians made no attempt to hide their assessment of human technology as primitive. Their condescension was evident in every explanation, every comparison to their own advanced systems. When they finally returned to the diplomatic quarters assigned to the humans, Hawkins gathered his team. Assessment, he asked quietly. Captain Rice spoke first. They're preparing for resource extraction under the guise of protection. Classic colonial approach. Dr. Wright nodded. Their language patterns suggest they expect compliance. The displays of military victories weren't decorative. They were warnings. And they believe we're an easy target, added Lieutenant Commander Puddle. They scanned the Artemis at least 17 times during our shuttle approach. They think they know our capabilities. Hawkins looked out the viewport at the stars. Then we continue as planned. We play the role of the naive, grateful species considering their generous offer. Meanwhile, Commander Chen needs to be informed. The Genesis project may need to be accelerated. Sir, Patel cautioned, if we reveal the Genesis, there's no going back. The Varkarians will know we've been deceiving them, which is why it remains our last resort, Hawkins replied. But make no mistake, if the Varkarians push, we need to be ready to push back. 3 days later, as the human delegation prepared to return to the Artemis, High Commander Zexforal presented them with a formal proposal. The document, translated into English, outlined the terms for Earth to become a protected affiliate of the Varkarian Dominion. We expect your leadership will see the wisdom in our offer, Zexforal said. The benefits far outweigh the modest contributions required. Hawkins accepted the document with appropriate diplomatic courtesy. We will convey your proposal to Earth's United Council. Such decisions require careful deliberation among our people. Of course, the Varkarian replied, though his upper eyes narrowed slightly. We will remain in your system to await your response. Perhaps a demonstration of our capabilities would help your leaders understand the advantages of Varkarian protection. As the human shuttle departed the dominant tide, Hawkins stared at the massive alien vessel through the viewport. 6 more Varkarian ships had arrived during their diplomatic visit, taking positions throughout the solar system, including unsettlingly close to Earth's moon. They're not planning to take no for an answer, are they? Dr. Wright said quietly. No, Hawkins replied. They're not. And that's exactly what we needed to confirm. As the shuttle approached the Artemis, Hawkins activated his secure communication device. The message was brief and encoded. Phoenix Protocol authorized. Bring the Genesis online. The gathering storm. Commander Elena Chen stood in the observation deck of the UND of Genesis, watching Earth shrink in the distance. Unlike the deliberately outdated appearance of the Artemis, the Genesis was humanity's true technological masterpiece, though from the outside, it looked just as unassuming. Its hull was a dull graphite color, lacking the ornate designs favored by the Valkyrians. But appearances were deceiving. All systems are operating within optimal parameters, reported Lieutenant Maya Okafor, the ship's chief engineer. Quantum shielding is functioning at 100% efficiency. The Valkyrians won't detect our true capabilities unless we want them to. Chen nodded, her expression serious. Status of the Starforge. Dormant but ready, Maya replied, referring to the ship's primary weapon system. The containment field is stable. Dr. Singh completed the final calibrations before departure. The Genesis carried humanity's most closely guarded secret, a weapon system that manipulated the fabric of space-time itself, creating localized gravitational distortions that could tear enemy ships apart from the inside. Developed in secret laboratories beneath the lunar surface, the Starforge represented decades of theoretical physics made real. Commander, called out Communications Officer Jacob Torres, incoming transmission from Admiral Hawkins. Priority Alpha. Chen moved to the command chair. On screen, Hawkins' face appeared, lines of worry evident even through the quantum-encrypted transmission. Commander Chen, the situation has escalated. The Valkyrians have issued an ultimatum. Earth has 72 hours to accept their protection or face what they call corrective measures. Their fleet deployment. Chen asked. 12 warships now, positioned throughout the system. 2 are maintaining orbit around Mars, uncomfortably close to our colony. Chen's jaw tightened, and our response. The Security Council is split. Some favor revealing our true technological level as a deterrent. Others believe maintaining the deception is critical. Hawkins paused. Your mission parameters have changed. The Genesis is to proceed to the Alpha Centauri colony immediately. Intelligence suggests the Valkyrians may target our extrasolar settlements, first as a demonstration. Understood, Admiral. Transit time to Alpha Centauri will be approximately 48 hours using conventional drives. If we engage the quantum fold drive. Negative, Hawkins interrupted. Maintain conventional propulsion until absolutely necessary. We need to preserve the element of surprise. After the transmission ended, Chen turned to her executive officer, Commander David Walsh. Set course for Alpha Centauri, conventional drives only, and alert Dr. Singh. I want the Starforge ready for potential deployment. Walsh hesitated. If we engage the Starforge, there's no going back. Every spacefaring civilization will know what we're capable of. And if we don't, Chen replied quietly, there might not be a human civilization left to worry about it. Across the vast expanse of space, High Commander Zex Vorel stood on the bridge of the dominant tide, reviewing the latest intelligence on human military capabilities. Their defense systems are rudimentary, noted his tactical officer, Tren Morax. Conventional kinetic barriers and point defense systems, nothing that could withstand a coordinated Valkyrian assault. And yet, Zex Vorel mused, they refuse our generous offer of protection. Curious. Perhaps they simply don't understand their vulnerability, suggested Diplomatic Minister Vex Kirill. Some species require demonstrations before they recognize reality. Zex Vorel's scales rippled in agreement. The human vessel that departed their system, the Genesis. What is its destination? Our sensors tracked it on a course toward their Alpha Centauri colony, Tren Morax replied. Using conventional fusion drives, it will arrive in approximately 2 standard cycles. Perfect. Zexforal's four eyes blinked in sequence. Dispatch the inevitable conquest and the glorious subjugation to Alpha Centauri. They will arrive before the humans and prepare a suitable welcome. The colony has 8,000 human settlers, noted Vexcaril. Precisely. A small enough population to serve as an effective demonstration, but large enough to make an impression on their homeworld government. Zexforal's mandibles clicked together in what passed for a smile among his kind. Sometimes species need to be reminded of the natural order. The next 48 hours passed in tense preparation aboard the Genesis. Commander Chen had ordered battle drills every 6 hours, pushing her crew to their limits. Despite outward appearances, the Genesis was staffed by the UNDF's elite, scientists, engineers, and soldiers who had trained together for years, preparing for a moment they hoped would never come. Dr. Vivek Singh, the architect of the Starforge system, joined Chen in the ship's strategic command center, his weathered face grave as he studied the simulations. The Starforge was never meant to be used in an inhabited system, he cautioned. The gravitational ripples could have unpredictable effects. Could it be contained? Chen asked. Focused on specific targets. Singh nodded hesitantly. Theoretically, yes. We've conducted simulations, but never a live test at full capacity. The energy requirements alone would reveal our true technological level instantly. Chen finished his thought. I understand the risks, Doctor. But if the Varkarians attack the colony, then we'll have no choice, Singh acknowledged. I've programmed targeting parameters that should minimize collateral effects. But, Commander, he paused, choosing his words carefully. Once this technology is revealed, every spacefaring species will know what humanity is capable of. Some may see it as a threat greater than the Varkarians. One problem at a time, Doctor, Chen replied, though his warning weighed heavily on her. As the Genesis approached the Alpha Centauri system, Lieutenant Torres at Communications straightened suddenly in his chair. Commander, I'm detecting multiple emergency transmissions from the colony. On screen, Chen ordered, rising from her chair. The main display activated, showing the face of Colony Governor Maya Rodriguez, her expression a mixture of fear and defiance. This is Governor Rodriguez to any UNDF vessels. 2 Varkarian warships entered our system 6 hours ago and have established orbit around New Terra. They're demanding we evacuate the primary settlement for inspection and have deployed what they call security forces to our main research facility. We've refused, but they've disabled our defensive grid and communications relays. This message is broadcasting on emergency channels only. Please. The transmission cut off abruptly. Status of Varkarian vessels, Chen demanded. Confirming 2 heavy cruisers in orbit around New Terra, reported Tactical Officer Lieutenant Kim. Designation matches the inevitable conquest and the glorious subjugation. Both vessels significantly outmass the Genesis and carry energy signatures consistent with advanced weapon systems. Chen's expression hardened. Time to arrival. 47 minutes at current speed, Navigator Paddle replied. Too long, Chen murmured. She looked at Executive Officer Walsh. Opinions. Walsh's face was grim. If we maintain our cover and approach at conventional speed, those security forces will have control of the colony before we arrive. If we reveal our capabilities and use the quantum fold drive, we'll arrive in seconds, but lose our technological advantage of surprise. Chen finished. She stood silent for a moment, weighing humanity's most carefully guarded secret against the immediate safety of 8,000 colonists. Prepare the quantum fold drive, she ordered finally, and bring the Starforge to standby status. We're done hiding. A collective tension rippled through the bridge crew. For decades, humanity had kept its true technological advancement secret, presenting a facade of conventional spacefaring capability to the galaxy while developing technologies that leapfrogged those of most known species. Quantum fold drive spooling, announced Lieutenant Okafor. Ready in 30 seconds. The Varkarians will detect the energy signature immediately, Walsh warned. Let them, Chen replied. It's time they learned who they're really dealing with. Across space, on the bridge of the inevitable conquest, Sub-Commander Dresvorel, cousin to the High Commander, supervised as Varkarian troops secured the human colony's research center. Have you accessed their data cores? He demanded. Yes, Sub-Commander, replied the science officer. Their technology is as primitive as we expected. Basic terraforming techniques, rudimentary quantum computing. Nothing that would benefit the Dominion significantly. Nevertheless, the demonstration must proceed. Prepare to evacuate 1,000 colonists to our vessel for protective relocation. That should convey our seriousness to their homeworld. Suddenly, the sensor officer's scales flared in alarm. Sub-Commander, detecting massive energy surge at the system's edge. Pattern unknown. It's. A blinding flash of light erupted in space as reality itself seemed to fold. Where empty space had been moments before, the UNDF Genesis now hung in orbit opposite the two Varkarian cruisers. Impossible, Dresvorel hissed. They can't have such technology. Our intelligence. Incoming transmission from the human vessel, the communications officer interrupted. The image of Commander Elena Chen appeared on the main screen, her expression calm but resolute. Varkarian vessels, this is Commander Elena Chen of the UNDF Genesis. You are illegally occupying a sovereign human colony. Withdraw your forces immediately, or we will take action to remove them. Dresvorel's scales rippled in what humans might recognize as laughter. One vessel against two Varkarian battlecruisers. Your bravery exceeds your wisdom, Commander. Your technological trick, impressive as it was, changes nothing. The Dominion has claimed this colony for protection. This is your final warning, Chen replied, her voice level. Withdraw or face the consequences. Dresvorel's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. Perhaps a demonstration will clarify the situation. He turned to his tactical officer. Target their propulsion systems. Disabled but not destroyed. On the Genesis, Lieutenant Kim reported. They're locking weapons on us, Commander. Chen looked around at her crew, seeing determination in their eyes. The moment humanity had both prepared for and dreaded had arrived. Activate the Starforge, she ordered quietly. Targeted deployment only. Let's show the Varkarians exactly who they've chosen to threaten. As the Varkarian weapons powered up, a soft hum began to resonate through the Genesis, building to a crescendo as the most powerful weapon humanity had ever created prepared to fire for the first time in actual combat. The facade was over. After decades of careful secrecy, humanity was about to reveal its true face to the galaxy. Reckoning. The bridge of the Genesis fell silent as the Starforge system came online. Unlike conventional weapons with their dramatic charging sounds and visible energy buildup, the Starforge's activation was unnervingly subtle, a barely perceptible vibration humming through the ship's structure. The slight dimming of lights as power routed to the quantum matrices. Starforge at full capacity, Dr. Singh reported, his voice steady despite the momentous nature of what they were about to do. Targeting systems locked on both Varkarian vessels. Containment field stable. Commander Chen took a deep breath, keenly aware that this moment would forever change humanity's place in the galaxy. Tactical status of the Varkarian ships. Both vessels are maintaining attack posture, Lieutenant Kim replied. Energy readings indicate weapons at 90% charge. Estimated firing time. 12 seconds. They still don't understand what they're facing. Executive Officer Walsh said quietly. No, Chen agreed. And that's their mistake. She straightened in her command chair. Engaged the Starforge. Minimum effective yield. Precision targeting on propulsion and weapons systems only. Dr. Singh's fingers moved across his specialized console, inputting the final authorization codes. Starforge engage. Deploying in 3, 2, 1. There was no beam of light, no projectile launched into space. Instead, the space between the Genesis and the Varkarian cruisers briefly shimmered, as though reality itself had rippled like the surface of a pond. On the bridge of the inevitable conquest, Sub-Commander Dresvoral was still smirking at the humans' futile resistance when his tactical officer suddenly stiffened. Sub-Commander, detecting massive gravitational anomalies forming around our... The officer never finished his sentence. Throughout both Varkarian vessels, localized distortions in spacetime began to manifest. Microscopic points where gravity suddenly increased 1,000-fold, then vanished just as quickly. Metal twisted and warped as the fabric of reality pulsed and flexed in precise, calculated patterns. The Varkarians watched in horror as sections of their ships simply collapsed inward, crushed by forces they couldn't understand or resist. Their advanced hull materials, designed to withstand the most powerful energy weapons in known space, offered no protection against the fundamental manipulation of spacetime itself. "What is this?" Dresvoral gasped as warning signals blared across his command center. "How can they?" "Propulsion systems destroyed," his engineering officer reported, scales flattened in terror. "Weapons platforms collapsing. Main power grid failing." On the Genesis, the bridge crew watched in grim silence as the Starforge performed exactly as designed. The targeted gravitational distortions systematically disabled the Varkarian ships without destroying them completely. A precision strike that demonstrated overwhelming power with restrained application. "Starforge disengaging," Dr. Singh announced. "Targeting complete. Energy signature returning to dormant levels." "Damage assessment of Varkarian vessels?" Chen asked. Lieutenant Kim studied her readings. "Both ships have lost propulsion and weapons capabilities. Life support seems intact, but they're completely disabled." "Casualties?" "Minimal, based on biometric readings. The precision targeting worked as intended." Chen nodded, relieved. The demonstration of power had been necessary, but she had no desire for wholesale slaughter. "Open a channel to both vessels." When the communication activated, the image of Sub-Commander Dresvoral appeared, his scales now pale with shock, the bridge behind him in disarray with emergency lighting casting an eerie glow. "This is Commander Chen. Your vessels have been disabled, but your life support remains functional. You will recall all your forces from the surface of New Terra immediately. Any Varkarian who remains on the colony after 1 hour will be considered a hostile combatant." Dresvoral's 4 eyes blinked rapidly, his mandibles twitching in what humans had learned was a sign of extreme agitation. What have you done? What weapon is this?" "One that we hoped never to use," Chen replied evenly. "Your ships will be towed to the edge of the system, where repair vessels from your fleet may retrieve you. Be advised that any future incursion into human space will be met with similar response." After terminating the transmission, Chen turned to her communications officer. "Lieutenant Torres, open a secure channel to Admiral Hawkins. Priority Alpha." Hawkins' face appeared on screen moments later, his expression changing from concern to relief when he saw Chen unharmed. "Report, Commander. The Varkarian vessels have been neutralized, Admiral. Colony is secure. The Starforge performed as expected, with minimal collateral damage." Hawkins nodded gravely. "The secret's out then?" "Yes, sir. There was no alternative." "I understand, Commander. You made the right call." Hawkins paused, his expression somber. "The Varkarian fleet in Earth orbit is suddenly very interested in diplomatic solutions. High Commander Zexforal has requested an immediate conference." "I imagine he has," Chen replied dryly. "The Security Council has authorized me to reveal the truth. Some of it, anyway. We've maintained the deception long enough." Hawkins leaned closer to the camera. "I'm dispatching the Artemis to tow the disabled Varkarian vessels. The Genesis is to return to Earth immediately. Your crew's expertise will be needed for what comes next." "And what exactly is that, sir?" "Redefining humanity's place in the galaxy," Hawkins said simply. 3 days later, Commander Chen stood in the Grand Chamber of the United Nations Security Council, alongside Admiral Hawkins, Dr. Singh, and other key military and scientific leaders. Across from them sat the Varkarian delegation, led by a visibly subdued High Commander Zexforal. "Let us be clear," said UN Secretary-General Amara Okonkwo, her voice firm as she addressed the Varkarians. "Humanity has no interest in dominion or conquest. Our technological advancement was kept secret precisely because we feared it would be misinterpreted as aggression. A fear that seems well-founded," noted Russian Federation President Sokolov, "given your immediate attempt to subjugate us upon first contact." Zexforal's scales rippled in what the humans now recognized as discomfort. "The Dominion has protected many developing species." "We are not a developing species," interrupted Admiral Hawkins. "That was a fiction we allowed you to believe." Secretary-General Okonkwo raised a hand for calm. "What matters now is establishing a genuine peace." Commander Chen's actions at Alpha Centauri were defensive and measured. "She could have destroyed your vessels completely but chose restraint. That is the true nature of humanity, capable of great power, but preferring cooperation." Zexforal's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "The Dominion acknowledges this demonstration of restraint. We are prepared to negotiate a mutual non-aggression pact and recognition of human territorial sovereignty." "That would be an excellent start," Okonkwo agreed. Later, in a private conference room adjacent to the chamber, Commander Chen found herself face-to-face with Zexforal as the diplomatic teams took a recess. "Your deception was impressive," the Varkarian admitted. "No species has successfully hidden their true technological level from the Dominion before." "We had good reason," Chen replied. "Earth's history is filled with technologically superior civilizations destroying or subjugating others. We vowed never to suffer that fate. And now, your weapon, this Starforge, it could destroy entire fleets, perhaps entire worlds." Chen met his gaze steadily. "It could. But that's not who we are, Commander. The Starforge was built as a shield, not a sword. We want to explore the galaxy, exchange knowledge, trade fairly, not conquer or control." "Some in the Dominion will not believe that," Zexforal warned. "They will see you as a threat to be eliminated before you grow stronger." "Then they would be making the same mistake you did," Chen said simply, "underestimating humanity's resolve when threatened, and our preference for peace when offered sincerely." The news of humanity's true technological capabilities spread rapidly throughout the galaxy. The reaction from other spacefaring species was mixed. Fear and suspicion from some, cautious overtures of alliance from others. The Varkarian Dominion, humbled but not broken, withdrew their demands for Earth's protection and established formal diplomatic relations. 6 months after the incident at Alpha Centauri, Commander Chen stood on the observation deck of the newly commissioned UNDF Concordia, watching as Earth grew smaller in the distance. Unlike its predecessors, the Concordia made no attempt to hide its advanced technology. Its hull gleamed with the distinctive pattern of quantum-reinforced materials, its propulsion system openly utilizing the principles of space-time manipulation that humanity had developed in secret for so long. "Setting course for the diplomatic conference at Proxima Centauri," announced Navigator Paddle. 32 species have confirmed attendance." Chen nodded, a small smile touching her lips. "Engage when ready, Lieutenant." As the stars blurred around them, Chen reflected on the rapid changes of the past months. Humanity had stepped onto the galactic stage, not as conquerors or victims, but as equals, powerful enough to defend themselves, restrained enough to be trusted. The path forward would not be simple, but it would be on their own terms. "Commander," called Lieutenant Torres from communications. "Incoming transmission from Admiral Hawkins." Hawkins' face appeared on screen, looking more relaxed than Chen had seen him in years. "Commander, the Varkarian delegation has arrived at Proxima Centauri ahead of schedule. They're bringing representatives from 3 species seeking formal alliances with Earth." "That's unexpected," Chen replied. "I thought we'd be negotiating from a position of isolation for years." Apparently, a civilization that possesses tremendous power but chooses limited application is something of a novelty in this galaxy, Hawkins said with dry humor. "The Starforge frightened them," but your restraint intrigued them. Chen thought about the long, secret years of humanity's technological development, the fear that had driven them to hide, the caution that had guided their first steps into the galaxy, and finally, the measured response that had defined their emergence as a power. "We showed them who we really are," she said quietly. "Not just what we can do, but what we choose not to do. That's the true measure of humanity." As the Concordia accelerated toward its destination, carrying representatives of a united Earth to their first true galactic summit, Chen felt the weight of responsibility and the lightness of possibility in equal measure. Humanity had faced its test and emerged not just successful, but victorious in the most important way, with their principles intact. The stars streaked past, no longer distant and unreachable, but the backdrop for humanity's next great adventure, no longer pretending to be less than they were, but showing the galaxy exactly who they had always been.